Hi, guys. Hi. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, sitting here going through the live feed, there wasn't much on here. I thought it'd be a good time for me to practice. Kind of new at this. I kind of wanted to share an experience I had earlier tonight on Facebook, hoping that there's a scammer watching right now that will hear what I'm saying. So, my daughter died 2 years ago. My name's Michelle. My channel's Xperience. I'm a Gen Xer. Um, I like to talk a lot about politics and life. Um, I was born upper middle class, but still very grounded. We were never pompous people ever. Um, very proud people, though. Just a little bit about me. I've been poor the majority of my life, though. Believe that. Worked really hard, but it is what it is. I think everybody's a little bit poor right now. Anyway, I moved last year. I was forced out of my apartment by the rent increases, and I had to rent a room way in the middle of nowhere. So the nearest bus stop is 10 miles away. I haven't been able to see well enough to drive in about 20 years. So I'm very, very sheltered out here. I've only left my home twice, and that was, besides walking to the store, which is 2 miles each way. And that was to be in the hospital, just to give you a little bit of what I'm talking about. So the day I left my apartment, I said goodbye to my best friend, Bruce. And I expected to be able to get a hold of him or very shortly after that. I had no idea I was going to end up in this situation where I'm at. I had other plans. Well, my Facebook got hacked about a month ago, and I got my page back. I did. I fought for it, and I got it back. Of course, I'm still dealing with all the nonsense on my page, though. They're really mad at me now because I got my page back and they can't get back in. So I'm dealing with a lot of harassment on there. And I really want to see my friend. I miss him. We were roommates for years, and he's my everything. He's not my boyfriend, he's my best friend. And I'm worried about him. We both left without anywhere to go. So I messaged all the people with his name on Facebook. Well, because they're all him, right? One of them messaged me back pretending to be him. And I didn't even know how much it would hurt me just to hear from him, you know what I mean? That it would make me feel so alone again. But for it to be a scammer, it made me angry. I try not to get angry because when I get angry, God doesn't like that. I don't know about you guys. I'm just tired of people trying to take advantage of me. I know that the internet is all pretty new. It's just so hard to protect yourself. I work about 12 to 16 hours a day on my social media accounts. I have 5 different platforms. They're all new. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying really hard, though, and it does keep me occupied. Besides my 2 cats, I live with roommates, but, like, we weren't friends. We're getting along, everything's good here, but they're not my friends I've had my whole life. I lived in the town I lived in for 30 years, so I had a lot of friends, and I knew a lot of people. I've always been really outgoing, and so I just have always had people around me, so this has been a really humbling experience. My little kittens have turned 1 years old the other day here, which I love them. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be alive right now, that's for sure. I would have never made it through any of this. Hi. I'm visually impaired, that's why I can't drive, but I'm trying to learn how to do this. Howdy. Hey, how are you? I can actually see. I can see you guys. Hi. I was gonna go live tonight and talk about the murder of David Tippit, who was a shipyard owner here in Seattle, Washington. But I'm gonna do that next week because it's kind of complicated. So I just wanted to get on because it's kind of late too. I could tell you a little bit about it though. So I'll end up telling you guys a story. So, when I was 24 years old, I was living in Everett, Washington. And I'm going to go briefly over this first part because it's very complicated. I had befriended a person at work. Her name was Catherine Dobson. She needed a place to stay so that she could find a place for her and her kids. I was a bartender, and she also worked at this nightclub that I worked at. So I invited her to my house, and man, the girl got an apartment like so quick. She was in a different world than I was. I was very naive. I would go partying at the bars and stuff like that, but I never partaked in anything else. Unfortunately, she did. She was 23 years old. I'm going to go briefly over this part. She was kidnapped. She was missing for 9 months from my home, and she was found dead, like I said, 9 months later. Very, very sad story. She had 2 little kids. It was very tragic. It was very scary, too. Believe it was scary because she was actually taken from my home. I was out of town at the time, but still, at one point, I had a policeman come to my house and tell me that the Mexican cartel thought that I was hiding her there still and that I should get me and my 2 little children and move. So where do we move? We moved about a mile away, but if you're not in that world, you're under the radar, right? They weren't really like actively looking for me. They wouldn't even have known how to find me. They didn't even know what I looked like, these people. So as long as I wasn't attached to that address, I was going to be safe. So I move, and guess what happens? So she was found in February of 1992. I'd moved to this place, and it had taken me 7 months before I'd ever talked to any of my neighbors. Like, I just hid in my apartment with my kids. I was just scared to death. So I befriend these neighbors, and she wasn't even buried, I don't think, 2 months before my new friends pull me into another situation that was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So I make best friends with this girl who lives next door to me. She had an older boyfriend, and me and her brother end up being like best friends. We're still boyfriend, girlfriend, kind of. Over the years, we're still forever, the 2 of us. He isn't sitting here right now because we go years without seeing each other, but you know what I mean. We've got that relationship. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, but so I've got these new friends. My whole life, I'm finally getting some peace in my mind because my friend has been found. She's laid to rest. I can breathe, right? At this time, I'm 24 years old. So she's found in February. In March, my new friends have a brother come from Louisiana that's been in prison for the last 17 years. But we're all family. Oh, these 2 guys were Cajuns. One of their names was Joseph Casbon. The other one's name was Gennard Casbon. Gennard was husband of my boyfriend forever's sister. So it was their apartment that was next door. So somehow these 2 got an idea. Some guy named Michael Lindquist was his name, that they had worked for, wanted to have this man named David Tippett murdered. I don't know any of that, right? I'm not in on any of that. Of course I'm not. This is secret stuff, right? At one point, my friend, she does confide in me, but I'm naive and I'm not listening. I'm thinking, oh God, this is another story. You know, people tell stories, whatever. I didn't take her seriously. To put it mildly, within 3 months, I was pushed right into the middle of another murder. To know that I drank coffee with those men the morning before they went and did this, it still makes me get goosebumps and makes me want to throw up. I couldn't believe it, like that I actually sat next to them and drank coffee that morning. I ended up, before the murder happened, when their brother had first got there, we had a party, you know, neighbors have parties, and we're drinking beer, and I meet the brother of my new friends that I love, and blah, blah, blah. And what did I do? Because he's from Louisiana, right? So he's freezing cold in Washington State. I let him have my friend that had just been murdered's coat. You know, it's, oh, here, you take this. Oh, you can wear this. That asshole wore that coat. He wore the coat to commit the crime. Now, if you want to hear about a horrendous crime, you can look it up. It's a David Tippit murder in Seattle, Washington. This crazy person walked into a crowded restaurant in Ballard, Washington, and literally shot that man right in the back of the head while he was having lunch with another person. And just to make sure he was done, picked his head up and shot him again, and then casually walked out. I have no knowledge of this. Apparently, they go and they burn everything that they have, right? I find this out from the police way later. But there's, even though this happened, nobody was talking about it. They weren't talking about it. I didn't know anything about it. And they're not talking about it. For a couple of months, I didn't know anything about what had happened that day. But this guy who'd been in prison for 17 years got his money for this contract killing. And guess what he decided to do? He decided to get in the same group of people that the girl whose coat I'd given him in her circle of cocaine crackheads. I don't know if you know about a crackhead, but they're pretty scandalous. And when he had gone to prison, I guess things were different, right? So he thought if he gave somebody something, they said they'd pay him back, that they would. Well, of course they're not going to, because we all know, you know, that's just not going to happen. But he doesn't know that. And he's a Cajun. He's actually doing life in prison right now, by the way. So his name's Joseph Caspon, if anybody's down my story. So he decides, now he would have gotten away with the murder of David Tippit, except for, if it wasn't for one thing, he decided to tell all these people, 40 different people, by the way, that he had fronted things to, what he did to that man to scare them into paying him. Talk about real smart guy, right? So me and Bob, which was my boyfriend at the time, and still is sometimes, we're sitting and watching television together, and our front windows like mirrored each other, his sister's and mine. And we were, I'll never forget it. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, his sister's living room just went black. But it was black with men in black coats because it was the police. And me and him are looking at each other and going, what the heck? There was like 10 of them. There must have been 10 detectives up in her apartment. And they were all on the ground. And we're both just going, oh my God, what happened? Because neither one of us actually knew anything about it. Anyway, he gets arrested. He goes to jail. They start talking to me. Now, at the time, I don't know anything about talking to policemen. And somehow I had told them accidentally that I lent him this coat. But I definitely didn't say, oh, yeah, he was wearing that coat, the coat I gave him when he did that, because I really didn't know. Do you want to know that even though the police had 60 witnesses, eyewitnesses to this, here I am, I'm 24 years old. I just went through the horror of my best friend being murdered. These jerks want me to testify. Now, not only is only one of the brothers in jail, the other one is way crazier, and he lives within 10 feet of me, and I already have problems with him every time he gets drunk. Every time he gets drunk, he throws things at my apartment. He had punched his sister before. I mean, he was just an awful person, like, with his temper. He was very unpredictable. And there's no way in hell I'm going to testify, right? There's no way. I went to my psychiatrist. I got my psychiatrist to write me a note. The police are so bad. A lot of them really are. I went to my psychiatrist, got a letter saying, she's not competent to stand trial. Wasn't good enough. They were going to put me in jail, right? So me and my ex-husband took my kids and we went to Disneyland for 3 weeks, thinking, okay, by the time I get back, I'll be over with, right? No, they're coming to my house. They're throwing subpoenas in my front door just because my door would be open on the ground because I refused to even have anything to do with them. So this goes on and this goes on, and they're not letting up on me. Now, here I have 2 babies, right? My husband's in the Navy. Well, my ex-husband, but it doesn't matter. At that point, we weren't divorced yet, but he's in the Navy and stuff. We're respectable people. We've never been in trouble for anything. And here these jerks are literally threatening me that they're going to put me in jail if I don't get on the stand and tell them that I lent this guy this coat. Well, in the meantime, they also let both of the men know that I had said this. So now I've got the crazy one that's next door threatening my life, like 100% threatening me. And he's not in jail. And not only is he not in jail, but he went state's evidence against Michael Lindquist. So he was not going to go to jail, no matter what he was doing, because they wanted this Lindquist guy. You know, he only ended up doing, I think, 14 years for that. And it really was all him. The guy who actually committed the murder was a very simple man. I would say that he was educationally challenged a little bit, if you know what I mean. He wasn't real bright. Neither one of these men were very bright. This man took total advantage of them, promised them that he would have lifetime employment for them and their kids. So, you know, old school Cajun men, that was a lot for them. So that's how they got pulled into it. But this guy is literally like in the middle of the night coming with knives to my throat, threatening me. The police are not leaving me alone. So finally one day, and I put this on everything, they come to the door and I happen to be standing right there. So with a straight face, I invite them in, but my kids were sitting in front of the TV eating cereal. You know how kids do that? And something inside me told me, Michelle, just walk through that cereal. So that's what I did. I literally walked in front of both my children and stepped in both their cereal bowls and acted like nothing had happened. And then I went and I sat down at my kitchen table and I started acting like I was, I don't know, like I was cuckoo. I kept asking my kids, where's Bob? Where's Bob? I played it off so well that when they left, they never bothered me again. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is this. There still needs to be a little bit of closure in this. When I watched the ending trial, when Joseph Kasbon was leaving the courtroom on the news, I watched him walk up to this man's family and look them right in the eye and tell them that he was innocent and that he didn't do it. And all these years, I've wanted to tell them that the right person was put in jail. I'm sure they know that. But for some reason, as a mom and as a human being, I've always wanted to reach out to her, the mother and the wife, and say, I'm so sorry. I would have testified if I thought that it would have made any difference. They had eyewitnesses. Absolutely no reason why they would, do something like that. My roommate is trying to get a hold of me. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit. I did this about 2 weeks ago and talking about the Catherine Dobson murder, and it put me through a lot of trauma. So I appreciate all of you letting me talk about this, because sometimes you just got to talk about it. But I will be back next Saturday night, because that is the night that I go live. I'll try and make it earlier. And thank you. And if you're new, hi. I really enjoy doing this, and I enjoy all of you. So thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful night. Okay? Bye.